Okay, so I'm gonna continue where I left off yesterday. Kind of just arrived in Banff, and I was going through all that stuff, and just was thinking about the little kid. Really, 18. So what year was that? 1990, 89, 89, and okay, and then I got the a job at a hotel. I was a bellman, and they a lot of the properties or like places to stay, places to work, offered some sort of housing for employees. Like our hotel had a back house, a house on the street behind the hotel, and there was two sections: front house, back house, but it was all for girls. And I think most of them had their own bedrooms, and you'd have a living room and stuff. It was just a house with a lot of bedrooms, but everyone was responsible to take care of things themselves and self-manage, and it worked out good. I was lucky. I was staying in the old hotel and had my own room on the top floor, and I think it's really crazy. I think I don't know if it was. I think it was $1.80 a day, um, and then you could get a meal. The man who owned that place, I believe he was from Switzerland. I wish I remembered his name, but he was privately owned, and for the first year that I worked there, and then he ended up selling it to the company who owns Travelodge, and so it started going through a lot of changes. But Mr. V, he was like Van something, was really nice. He had this guy Larry kind of managing, who he liked me, but he was pretty hard on some people. But although he got upset when I got a second job at a restaurant, he was like I had to choose, and I was like, or I would lose my housing privilege. He just didn't. He wanted me available, and it was kind of. Anyway, that's a different story too. But that leads me into the other job that I had, which was I was a prep cook at this really nice restaurant. I believe there was like only 8 tables, two waiters, um, slow turnover, exotic food like wild game, things like that. It was called Joshua's, and then right next door was Joshua's Pub, same place. And I they needed help, and they just, every salad had to be like, spinning the spinach, like, spiraling it up, and everything. We made our own pasta. Our like everything was from scratch in that kitchen. The Caesar salad dressing I made. I don't remember how to make any of that stuff anymore. I mean, I just followed instructions. I wasn't really food minded. I was just job oriented, task oriented, and so I just did a really good job. And then I had to decide, well, and it's really unfair and probably illegal that guy did that. But I had such cheap housing. But then the chef at the restaurant, he actually said I could live in his basement. And they just had a new child, but I had a girlfriend, and she worked at the hotel, and I honestly think that was probably what motivated my decision more than anything. Because the housing really would have been taken care of, and then my whole life would have taken a different path. Because he was just, I'll teach you everything. But it wasn't my mindset. My mindset wasn't cooking. I was just task oriented. You tell me what to do, I'll do it exactly how you tell me to do it, or I'll learn how to do it exactly how you want me to do it, and that's it. And I kept your area clean. It was a really nice little kitchen. So, but I ended up choosing the hotel, and probably would have had a completely different life where that might have just ended up being cooking, cooking, cooking from then on. You know, and there's lots of great opportunities in that field. That restaurant's no longer there, but there's a native, well, Canadian, First Nations, kind of old warrior chief looking. It's in the concrete on the facade of the building, and it's been there for a long time. So it's not Joshua, but it's still there. I think I have a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, that restaurant's not there anymore, and I don't remember names. times, and this was back in 1990, right? So, yeah, I'd have to go down a pretty long journey to find those people. So from there, I worked at the inn, and then I also became a busboy at the inn, working in the restaurant, and then I was a bellman. The bellman, we did everything. Then we did more than just carrying bags. We'd have like large tours come in, and we'd have like, we could have just a pile of bags on our cart, and there's lots of stories about um, dealing with people who didn't want their bag on the bottom, even though there are hard shell cases and stuff. Like, these are organized tours from, like, Japan was a big place, Italy was huge, Germany. I mean, there were just people from everywhere, but I would say Japan, Germany, U.S. Were the most popular. And then they had a gift shop there, and a friend of mine owned it. It was individual. He'd rent the space and has his little shop, and so I worked there for a little extra money. He was a really nice guy. My girlfriend smoked this particular cigarette that he didn't carry, but since she liked him, he would order them for her by the carton. And I didn't smoke, but she was, anyway, to each their own. So then after I left Banff, I moved to Vancouver, and my first job there, I worked at a porno shop. Before I left Banff, this new company that took over the hotel, the Travelodge, they owed us porterage. It was $1 a bag, and that was always the thing. We used to get a bonus. It was also supposed to be like, these tours pay a tip for the porterage, but we weren't receiving it. And I was keeping track. I had all the stacks of all the tours that we'd done, and it was like thousands of dollars they owed us. And this was the whole summer, right? So I kind of lost my shit one night. Got pretty drunk, and I put my hand through single pane old glass. Like, this building was already old, so it wasn't like a dual pane window, but I have the scars here from putting my hand through it. And then I was bleeding really bad, because there was even one here, and if I would pull my hand out, the blood would just squirt. And called an ambulance, but it's a small town, and I think probably a mile away to the hospital, so I ended up just going myself. I never really thought about bleeding to death or anything like that. I mean, I had it on, but like, the blood was all up my shirt, and it was first thing in the morning. I'd been up all night, and I just got really upset. I was getting really stressed out that they were ripping us off, and so I was going to quit. And yeah, so I ran to the hospital, and she's like, "How can I help you?" And I just lifted my hand, and the blood just went flying. And so they stitched me up, and yeah, it was there's more to that story too. Anyway, so I ended up going to Vancouver. Well, this hand is not really fully functional, and my arm, I'm still healing. I think I'm out of the sling, and I don't have that plaster anymore, but I'm still really tender, so I can't like wait tables or do kind of labor. So I didn't really know what to do, and I was walking downtown on Granville, and I passed this adult and says, now hiring or whatever. And so I go in and I talk to Mariano, who I'm still acquaintances with. I've known him since then. This is, way back then. And he's from Argentina, and he was the manager, and he worked the good shift, the afternoon shift, and they needed someone to work nights, so I said I would, and I really didn't know what I was getting into. I never really spent any time but I have an interesting upbringing, so none of that really bothered or offended me. Even though there's a lot of things in there that don't appeal to me, I always just feel, just be nice to people, and let them do what they want, and as long as they're not hurting you, right? So I did that job for quite a while, and it paid well. You got commission and things like that, and but it got stressful at times because people are inappropriate, and the bars close at 2 a.m. The store's 24 hours. So and there's two stores not far from each other, probably not even a quarter mile on the next block. And so sometimes people would steal stuff from one store and try to sell it to another store. Like we would, not like dildos and stuff, but like magazines. And back then, these be full color, 100 pages, no ads, just whatever the topic is. And so we would buy them, I think, at 25% face value. So maybe 50%, I don't know. I think 25%. So all of a sudden, this guy walks in and he's just like got all these mags. And I already got a call from the other store. They go, "This guy just left." And I'm like, okay. So I grabbed all the mags and, and then I told him he could leave. And he's like, "Those are mine. I got a whole box of them." And I chased him out. We used to have this dye, and you could spray like someone who was robbing you with this dye, so they'd be easily identified. And he had a white Civic. It was that flat back, kind of the glass back, before hybrids and stuff. But yeah, and I just tagged his white car. And I kept the magazines. And I may have even, I don't know what but they weren't really proactive with, I mean, they had the sensors and stuff, but I mean, cops didn't really care. I had a problem and their cops came slowly while I was in the middle of like beating this guy down after he attacked me. And so it was it was a scene. So eventually I had to leave that job, and I lost my page because I've been talking so long. So a cashier. Oh, in Calgary, I did steel stud framing for a high rise. Did that for a little bit. Then I was a roofer for a little bit. I was also a cashier at a sports collectibles shop. That was a cool job. I think I even got a card there because I had I get a good deal. I used to really be into cards back then, so I had quite a few. And when I moved to the U.S. from Vancouver, I left them with somebody who I thought I could trust. You can't always, you just never know. So, and that was a lot, huge, 10,000 cards, a lot of signed, a lot of cool memorabilia, and all self, I never inherited anything. Like, I just collected like crazy. And after that, I'm just like, I'm not getting into that stuff anymore. At least I had my prized cards with me. I just took a handful because I was driving. I could only fit whatever I could fit in my car. So then in Vancouver also, I worked at a plastic extrusion company. We made plastics for like laptops, things like that. And I'd extrude a lot of stuff that contained formaldehyde. So there I had two jobs. For the first quite a while, I was a mixer where we would mix the color compound concentrate to mix with the plastic that would go through extruder, make not the final product, but use pellet form that would go to whoever's manufacturing whatever. And we didn't make final product. So and then I got up to extrusion, which was two totally different jobs. So I consider those different jobs because even though I got paid from the same company, two completely different jobs. There's some people who never get out of mixing because they can't be trusted with the extruders. And again, I'm very task oriented. I knew exactly what to do. Things are usually very simple. And so the military is like a prime example of super simple. It has to be, because you have the rejects of the country there, on top of good people too. I was there and stuff, but I wanted to say thank you for letting me in the country. There's a lot of people in there because they get duped by a recruiter, and boy, you try to tell them to clean up their room and they act like it's just a huge civil rights violation. It's like constant victimhood attitude in the military. It's primarily done by a certain group. It's my experience, which is a real one. It's not bullshit either. So I know some people, and I was like, well, fuck you. Um, I know what I know. So, also in Vancouver, I got a little personal there. In Vancouver, I was selling lottery tickets, and this was over the phone. And so we're in Vancouver, Canada, BC, and we were calling U.S. numbers, and these were like lists they bought. And back then, it was like we had to go through such security when we came in and when we left, because you can't be stealing numbers and lists, and they pay a lot of money for that stuff. Especially back then, this was like computers were. We had a phone and a notepad, basically, in a list. There was no computer in front of us. That was rare. As far as working with. So we call up these old people, and like I went through this training, and it was paid training. And then after training, you get to decide, do you want to go hourly or do you want to go lower hourly with commission? And I'm like, I'm just going to go hourly. And so you need to make a certain amount of phone calls. Well, I make these phone calls to these old people, and what are old people? They're usually pretty lonely. And I love my grandmother. I mean, she was like my favorite person in the whole world. And my grandfather. So, and I always would go to the old folks home with them, and I grew up loving old people. So, and even when I was there, like visiting my grandmother, I'd go visit other old people. I'm gonna go say hi to Maddie. I'm gonna go say hi to Francis. It was just I enjoyed those people. They were my friends. And so when I would be talking to an old person, like there's this kind of something resonates, and I would just keep talking, and they're thinking I'm making a sale, and I'm just like, oh, it's okay. I'm just like talking to them. I'm not selling them at all. And so then they brought me and this other guy, and we had to have fake names. I think my name was Jim Gold, and this other guy, I can't remember his, something Banks, and they tell you to pick these fake names because it implies money and riches, something that will trigger some sort of like connection of success. And it's all stupid. It's manipulation. If you can't do it honestly, then don't do it. Don't manipulate people. And I've always felt like that. So this job I was just doing for the hourly. One guy was in his bathtub. I could hear him in the water, so I just hung up because I'm like, I'm not talking to a fucking guy in the bathtub. That's just weird to me. When you're trying to do business, if you're friends, family, who cares? But for the most part, yeah, I was just spending way too much time. So they call me in, they show me my numbers, everything's horrible. I haven't made one sale. Not one. And me and this other guy got canned like on the spot. We got a little severance pay because they weren't even going to keep us there for another, like, I think we had to do another like 5 days or something like that, and they were just like, no, you can leave now. Turn in your lists, and they check you on the way out. And the interesting thing about that job, so I was on this can't remember, but they sold like Canadian lottery. Supposedly you get in a big group of people, and then you pool your numbers together, and then if there was a winner, this company was keeping it, and nobody ever knows. And there was the El Gordo in Spain. There was like $1 billion, 10 different lotteries, $100 million in each lottery, prizes. And so, but you would never know how big your group is. You would never know anything. So you have no idea how it's being split. And how does this company make money, right? Obviously, they keep a little bit, but so it wasn't long after, and then it was on the news. And back then, the news wasn't 24 hours. It was just the news, 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and some morning show shit. And this company was getting raided by the RCMP because of what they were doing, and actually, you can look it up online. So it was pretty interesting. Me and that other guy left. We were just never saw him again, But at work, we were kind of like friends because it was like we were the only guys that were just like, this is stupid. This is a scam, And I wasn't gonna scam people. So then I got canned, and and in Canada it wasn't so bad then. You get canned, you just go on unemployment, and until you find and unemployment was fair. I have no idea what it's like now. This is back in the 90s, early 90s. So then I've done the plastics, I've done the plastic operator, the mixer. Okay, so then now I am moving to the US. So I moved here in December 96. And my first job was at the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess 5 Diamond 5-star resort, and I was introduced to capitalism because I grew up in Canada where everyone paid fair wages, right? And actually, I was going to do the same job that I was doing in Canada when I came here. Not only is it the U.S. that pays shit to trades, even unless you're lucky to get in a union or something like that. But Arizona, being a right to work state, kind of pushed a lot of unions out. So there was no. I went to the same company, same job, and they had the exact same equipment. I would have, but I was like, I was blown away by the fact that I went there and I looked. I think I went there in the summer before I actually moved to the U.S. and and I went in there and I'm like, holy shit, it's hot. These machines are hot. They're running hot. They're melting and mixing plastic, right? So, and they're letting off a lot of heat. And in Canada, that was just never a problem. In the summer, maybe a little bit, but you open up a couple bay doors and you get a good flow of wind and you're fine. Um, this place actually didn't even have like walls. It was like under a big metal, kind of like almost like like I don't know, a barn without the sidewalls. And it was so hot. And then when he told me they were getting $17 an hour or something like that, and this is back in '96, and I was just like, that's outrageous. And in these conditions, you know, I mean, I don't know. I know the cost of living was a lot better in Arizona. Everything was cheaper than Vancouver, but that just seemed like such a huge pay cut. Now people are probably like, you should have taken it, you know. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I went and applied it at the hotels because they were closer to home, and because I was in Scottsdale, and I just thought I wanted to be up in that area. Back then, transit was horrible. I didn't have a car yet. Didn't have a bike. Had to get a bike because there was no transit on the weekend in Scottsdale, and rode my bike to the Princess, and then I worked there for a couple weeks at the pool, and it was horrible. I was supposed to claim my tips while making $2.17 an hour, and I'm like, I'm not claiming my fucking tips. This is ridiculous. You know, this is like $2. I'm like, you're insane. This won't even cover tax on those tips, the income tax. You know, the tax rate's a lot lower in Canada. People say free healthcare. It's not free. I saw way more in my checks here. But the fact is, it just started so low. Minimum wage back then, I think, was like 4 or something, maybe 5.15, and I was just blown away by how now on the other end of it, you know, like for instance, a bottle of 151 Bacardi 151. I don't really drink it, but I'm aware of it, and so the cost in Canada for a 26-ounce bottle was $36, and in the U.S. it was $10 at Safeway, basically 9 something. And the income or the sales tax is less. So there's a lot less taxes here, but the wages, and they really haven't. I mean, now they're going up and everything's going up in price. So it's relative. It's really not productive because all it does is all these high wages are causing is inflation, really. I mean, just look, quesadilla Taco Bell before COVID was 4 something, and now it's 6 something. So, gas, things like that. So anyway, yeah, I was a pool attendant, just a waiter, and that was pretty interesting for the 2 weeks. I'd applied at the Hyatt first to be a tennis attendant, and they had filled the position. But then 2 weeks later, they called me back, and my idea at the Princess was to transition into the tennis department. I really liked playing tennis. I wanted to be around tennis. They held Frank Templeton Classic there, and back then Agassi was, you know, playing. So I was just like thrilled to be at the Princess. And then of course back then it was just the Phoenix Open at the TPC. So I was like, I moved from Vancouver, where it's raining all the friggin' time, to this amazing place. And Vancouver's a beautiful city, but it's just miserable weather. And so it was just quite a culture shock. So all these, you know, cost things weren't really a consideration in the big picture. But yeah, I went, and then the Hyatt contacted me and said, "Hey, we do have that spot open. It didn't work out. Would you like it?" And so I said, "Yeah," because the Hyatt was literally a quarter mile from my house, the Hyatt Gaining Ranch, and so I was working there, and I worked there until I joined the Marines. But I also, as soon as I started working there, and I got a car, and then I would at nighttime. So I'd work at the Hyatt. Basically, I worked days, um, and then from 5:30 to 8:30, I'd work the rush at Pizza Hut, delivering pizza, without GPS and all that crap. It was very frustrating in Scottsdale. There's a lot of dead ends in Scottsdale. A lot of cul-de-sacs. And then after that, at 8:30, I'd go over to this, like, God, I don't know if he's a billionaire, very rich guy. Um, I would help put him to bed because he had Lou Gehrig's. And so each night, 7 days a week, I would go to his house. I'd hang out with him for a little bit. And I kind of got this job. My mom heard about it, and like I had no experience as a caregiver at all. None. um, and when I first got there, he could still walk a bit, and so I was more just helping him. And then, of course, there's just total, your body's just failing. And then I put thickener in his water. I'd help him go to the bathroom at night, help him stretch, and it was weird. He was 170 pounds, but he felt like 300 when it's dead weight, because he's like, I'm helping as much as I can, and there was nothing there. And his wife was a horrible, horrible person. Just a horrible, nasty, scowly fucking bitch. And I don't know what this guy was like before he was terminal, because we're all terminal. We're all gonna die. No way around it. But we all take that time for granted until it's made very, it's profoundly aware, like time that you're gonna die. Like you get a terminal illness, then all of a sudden there's a clock. You hear that clock ticking. Right now I don't hear it clicking, and maybe I get hit by a car tomorrow. You know, or until I'm diagnosed with something, I'm kind of just living life, trying to do what I can do, what. And so I don't know what his life was like before he really had to come to terms with his mortality. So he was really nice. Everything I saw about him was really nice. Again, he's dealing with death, so maybe he softened up a lot to try to make amends. Maybe he was a real prick. Maybe he was never home for the kids. Maybe so. I don't know the backstory. Never asked him. Wasn't the easiest thing to talk with him because he was very labored when he could talk, and then it became where he really couldn't talk. So he had this house was a mansion, beautiful house in Paradise Valley actually, and he ended up getting a scooter, right? So he was in the house and he hit some walls, bumping into things because he's like dying. And his fucking wife is like, I did not sign up for this shit. You're wrecking my walls, and just like, guy's dying and she's fucking flipping out about her walls. And he buys his daughter a car and she's bitching about the color. I don't like red. You did that on purpose. Just like, what the fuck? You must have been a fucking animal or very neglected parent at the best, because this is a scene, man, and it sucks. I mean, you got a gorgeous house. Everyone should be around just so fucking thankful that, dad provided this, and if he was a dick, he's dying, we're done. But really you got to be a dick to the day he dies? I was just like, so one day I'm there, and I can't remember if I had already signed up for the Marines or not at this point. But I had to be there every day. And this was before cell phones. So maybe, a few people had them, but they were not. You were paying, like, you had to buy all these minutes, and it was expensive and unnecessary at that time. So I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't get one until I came back from Japan, which was 6 years later. Or 4 years later or something. Anyway, so I go to the house like I'm supposed to, and I wait, 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 and no one's there, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. No one ever shows up, you know, and I can't call. I don't even know if I had their number, to tell you the truth. I just had the address, showed up, and always was there. There was never a reason to call me, because it's not like, oh, we won't need you today until that day, right? So so I wait and I wait, you know. I'm like, now I'm wasting my fucking time, so I go home. I'm like, okay, well, they've got this figured out, because there should be a note, or tell the fucking maid or somebody, like, you know. But no one's giving me any information. No one's home. Like, I've knocked on the door and stuff like that, and so then didn't think anything of it, other than I they must have had my number. I don't know. There's a way to let me know, I'm sure. So anyway, they had gone out to dinner apparently, and so then on payday, and this crazy shit too is that I would spend. This lady was so cheap, and I just didn't know. I was like, it was more than $2.17 an hour, you know, and I wasn't having to claim it. But I'd get like $20, and it was supposed to be for an hour of work. But I'd usually, just because I'm nice and I was hanging out with the guy and felt bad for him, I'd be there an hour and a half, 2 hours. And so that paycheck, I was like short a day's pay. And I'm like, hey, you're short. And she goes, well, you didn't come that day. I said, no, I was here. You weren't here. She goes, well, we went to dinner. I said, no one told me. And I was here. So you need to pay me. I mean, this is a fucking, you know, 9-figure fucking family. It gotta be. This guy started cable in Kansas, you know. I mean, it's Phil was his name. I can't remember his last name. Extremely wealthy. And this bitch is fucking being like this over $20, right? And this is where I don't give a fuck who you are. You will never manipulate me with money. You will not use your fucking power and your fucking role to fucking abuse me. I don't care if I love that old man in there. You're not gonna fucking abuse me. And I kind of have, like with adults, kind of a one shot, one kill fucking thing. Like I'm not here to fucking teach adults how to be fucking proper and how to treat people. You should know that. And if you don't, you know, and there's a possibility we can all make mistakes and that can be, you know, rectified. But for the most part, this lady was just a fucking nasty bitch. And I told her, I said, okay, see ya. I'm not coming back. And she goes, well, you can't do that. You need to give us notice. I said, no. And she goes, over $20? I'm like, yep. I said, it's the principal. I said, you can find someone else. I think I had, you know, and then he died while I was in boot camp. So, yeah, but, I mean, really, $20. You should be fucking tipping me. I take such good care of him, you know. It was just mind-blowing how horrible this fucking family was. So that was my last job before I joined the Marines, and I quit Pizza Hut properly, and I quit the Hyatt properly. You know, and I had good friends at all those places, and still friends with some of them today. You know, 26 years later. So I think that's enough for today. We got to, where are we? I'm in the U.S. now. So 1996. Oh, I did a fake jury in Scottsdale. That was interesting. I believe SRP were, you know, they're hiring linemen, right? You know, the guys who climb the poles and stuff. And so there was like a community college that had a lineman school, and it was approved by SRP, and they had all these like poles set up, and, you know, so you could learn how to climb and, you know, do whatever you're doing. And a guy fell, and his whole life changed, right? He fell down one of these poles. And so we had to watch a video of him, like, kind of before and after, and then they present us facts. They don't really, I mean, because they're only representing one side, right? And you could tell they were on the side of sue the big company, even though the school was fully responsible for the training curriculum and the equipment. They didn't have deep pockets, so this law firm was leaning towards pushing you to think like SRP was a problem. Like, well, they ask you leading questions, because it's just a fake jury. They just want to kind of see what's going to happen, right? And again, I'm from Canada too. I'm not a litigious sort of person, and I don't have the Sioux mentality, which is very prevalent here in the U.S. and still is, obviously. And so I was more like, what's right? You know, not, it's unfortunate the guy fell. You know, there's insurance and he's got, but it's going to take this and that and blah, 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 and all these things and stuff like that. Yeah, that all needs to be taken care of. Absolutely. But who's responsible? The school's responsible. And if they have a, you know, whatever the cap is on their insurance or whatever the thing is. So me and this other juror who was just this freaking like toothless animal. And I remember back then I was a little less reserved, and I kind of got up and laid into him because it was just like, who cares? You just sue where you can get the money kind of attitude, right? And they just really they want to get dumb people in the jury apparently who just feel sorry for people and, well, someone's got to pay, so we'll go where the deeper pockets are, not what's right and wrong, and use all the facts to make a sound decision. It's like it was absent in that room. But me and this one guy, they asked me to leave and they gave me the check, so I didn't even have to stay the whole time. So that was pretty awesome because I was like, Jesus, this is fucking insane. And so let's finish before I join Adelico tennis attendant. Banquet server, I did that at the Hyatt as well. You know, help with functions. That was a different pay, different tasks. I didn't like that at all. I don't like serving people like that. Where it's just, you know, the quality is so out of control. I mean, because everything's just, you know, whatever, and people fish and steak, and I just didn't like it. And then I was a tennis, so the tennis attendant was my main job, where I would clean the courts, set up the courts. People come to play, I'd take them out water and stuff like that. If someone wanted to hit, I'd hit with them, or I'd set the ball machine up, or I'd fill in for doubles if there was only three. You know, I kind of just was a jack of all trades, Jim of all trades there. And then when there was kids, I would give kids lessons. Betsy, I can't remember her last name. She played professional tennis. She was odd, but she really liked me, and she was really a good coach, and she taught me a lot of good stuff in tennis. And then she would teach me how to teach tennis, because it's one thing to play and another thing to teach. You know, she's like, don't ever just hit the ball right out of the air, let it bounce first, so the person, you know, it gives them time to, you know. So there's all these just like teaching etiquette, and so I appreciated that. And then, I mean, you'd never know it looking at her, but man, well, she was really tall. She could cover the court really well, but she was older, but her strokes were just beautiful. She just had such a beautiful stroke. But again, she was odd, and so was the recreation manager. But I won Employee of the Month a couple times there, and I enjoyed it until I joined the Marines. So yeah, it was fun. I got to teach it. So I was kind of gonna, when I got out of the Marines, I was thinking of becoming a coach, but different things happened. So anyway, we're stopping there. 38 minutes today. Oi. And then we'll continue. I guess we'll start at the Marines next time. All right.